Hey, it's your guide of light to help you through the night. And yes, I'm sitting down today because I'm just feeling like a woman. No gender separation in that, just going through things that us women go through. So, anyways, um, for the last 2 days, I've been hearing tell the tale, and it's a tale of ancient times. And I've waited to get clarity on this, and I've actually had things just pop in my head and I've taken notes on it, and it's the invisible warfare. And I don't think anyone realizes that which has been was real. We find things in the earth that prove, there were giants. That talks about the story of David and Goliath, that there were winged creatures and there were dinosaurs and there were things that we can't see that were physically here before we were. So that brings me to this invisible warfare that's gone on through all time. And it is something that is fighting for balance. And I was sitting last night, actually, I was laying in bed, I was about to go to sleep, and my brain just said, nope, we got to talk. And I was like, I'm so tired though. Like, can we do it later? And of course, no, we can't do it later because when spirit wants to talk, spirit's going to talk. And the person I am, I jot down notes. So this invisible warfare, it's kind of between good and bad, negative, positive, love and hate, whatever you want to label it as. And all I kept hearing for the last couple days too is the Beauty and the Beast song. The tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. And I don't remember the rest of the lyrics, and I hear them in my head, but I can't get them out of my mouth. So as I was sitting there, all of a sudden I was like, get a pen and paper, get a pen and paper. And I took notes, of course, for myself, but it was weird because as I was writing all this down, I was like, I needed to learn a lesson. And someone called me because we were messaging and they said, what was the lesson you needed to learn? And I said, not to judge by sight. And they died laughing. And it made me go through everything that was like the last couple days just whirling in my head, and it all started falling in place. It was like the missing puzzle pieces. But it started with you're going to have to go with me here because I've pieced all this together, and I figured it would flow out of me. But I'm setting up the stage for the story, I guess. So we live in a world where we keep the light confined and the darkness shines, right? The darkness is like, so I don't give a shit. Fuck you, judge me, whoever, whatever. I don't care. So when it comes down to it, we're more comfortable with darkness than we are with light. But that creates an imbalance because the polarity is not there. When you can balance things and allow for free flow, then you can have this not complete, but this optimum functioning system. And I had to come to the conclusion of, keep the darkness on the inside and the light on the outside, because then it can flow. And I don't know if you can see this. When you have the light on the inside and the darkness on the outside, it stops. Like there's no getting out. But when you have the darkness on the inside and the light on the outside, it's almost like a hoop that lets it keep going. And you might not be following my thought process. It made perfect sense to me while I was figuring it out. And this had to do also with I've been making sensory bottles for one of my kids that's autistic. And I tried to make one last night and it didn't work out. So I added more and it made it worse. And then I was like, oh, okay, I need to reassess the situation. And while I was doing it, I was like, oh, it needs more than just the 2 ingredients. It needs more than the 3 ingredients. And then I was like, oh, it's a matter of the recipe. So when it comes down to it, this invisible warfare that we've been a part of and not aware of, it's like a driving force for us to continue to battle to feel alive. And I don't know if it's being uncomfortable with death or being comfortable with death. I haven't come to that conclusion for myself. But we live in a world that, like I said, it's so comfortable with the darkness that when light pops up, they're like, ugh, who are you? And they want to push you away. And I had to sit there and consider, what is it that's dark and what is it that's light? And with darkness, it's the unknown, fear, doubt, pain, worry. And you can keep going with this list. And with light, it's you have the sight, the clarity, you know what's going on. You're comfortable in that position. So some people would label one side negative and one side positive, but even on a battery, it doesn't matter which side is which. It's still the fact that you have to have two opposites for it to be able to work when it hits that source that needs to draw that energy from it, right? But two opposites must be allowed and accepted for polarity to exist. And when you have polarity, you have this equality, this balance. And for a long time, I've tried to personally get back to balance, because I was in a toxic relationship for so long that the imbalance was normal to me, and my body was screaming, this is not normal. My mind was screaming, this is not normal. But the rest of me had to go, but this is life. And I accepted it for what it was, not realizing that I was cutting my life short, my happiness, my abundance, the things that I could draw into me. I didn't even know that I had that capability at that time, because I was so okay with living a lie. And it's almost like this story of antiquity sheds light on the lie. That when you discard certain toxic situations, you start drawing your light back to you, because we all come out of a dark space into a world of light, and our eyes are closed, right? By the time our eyes are opened and we're being told, do this, don't do that, eat this, don't eat that, oh, you're allergic to that, like people telling us who we are and what we are. Our eyes are open, but our minds are still blind, because we are not ourselves. We are whoever programmed us to be. Essentially, our parents from the get-go. But our parents were programmed by somebody else. And this goes down generation, that we blindly accept it because this is what we're told to do. If we're not accepting of what we're told, then we're punished. So we're pushed into submission to be that which we're not comfortable being. So right off the bat, you're already in a state of dysfunction, because you can't talk back for fear of losing the life that you have, the provider, the one that takes care of you. And it's funny that we function like that on a human level, but as we get older, we don't function like that on a spiritual level, the higher one that takes care of us. So as we allow in more of the darkness, and I correlate this with the devil, and then the light being more of the angelic realm. So as we allow more of the devilish energies to tell us, this is what you're going to do, this is how you're going to make it, this is not allowed, this is allowed. And it's normally the opposite of what your soul is comfortable with. But oddly, we're more okay being driven by the devil because there's comforts in that, right? And it's sheer chaos, honestly. I don't know how many people have gone through the addictions like I have, how many people have fought alcohol like I have, how many people have accepted toxic relationships like I have. And at some point I had to go, no, you're better than this. You deserve more than this. And that is the time that I looked up. And then when I looked up, I realized I was never abandoned. I've always had that loving energy there. I turned my back. And it was for me to turn back around and face the light and no longer fear the darkness behind me. And, we have archaeologists that dig and dig and dig and dig, searching for truth, when we can look right in front of our eyes and it's all around us. So this tale about the warfare that's been going on between love and hate, dark and light, and it's for control. And there's been a lot of stories that have highlighted this, right? Pretty much every fairy tale we've ever read, there's a villain, and then there's somebody who has to be saved. And then the one that had to be saved handled it so graciously that they were blessed with a kingdom or whatever it was, acknowledgement. And that directly correlates to all of the past wars that have been fought, the kingdoms that have come and gone, the royalty that has existed that now doesn't really matter as much as it did, let's say, 700 to 1,000 years ago. Because we're not ruled by those monarchies anymore. We're not ruled by kings and queens that own the land directly around us. So now if we want to war visibly, we have to load up jets. We have to load up tanks. We have to ship off our men and women. We have to get ready at home and, buckle down and know that times are going to get tough. This is the visual aspect of it. But the invisible aspect of it is that spiritual warfare, where your spirit's fighting and going, no, I'm not okay with this. And everyone's always told me one person can't change the world. And I always said, all it takes is one person with a good idea. One person to initiate a mindset that change is necessary. And then they can show you that this is why we need to change. And they can do it only for themselves. Not even affect the world around them, but it's a ripple effect. It's going to spread because energy is contagious. So when we get down to this invisible warfare, the thing that's holding everybody back from their abundance, their blessings, their gifts, their ability to show up and glow up and show the world what they're made of, that's that invisible warfare. And it's always just one little step away. One little blind spot away, because you can't have the courage to step forward if you're walking in fear. That's a part of that invisible warfare. Your mind is the gateway to the biggest war you will ever battle. But your mind is the thing that is the driving force for your heart. They have to work together. And when there's an imbalance in it, there's a malfunction. And sometimes we disassociate ourselves from ourselves to make sense of what we're allowing that our heart knows we should not. And then that leads to like a spiritual breakdown. And then the more you break down on a spiritual level, the more you build up on an egoic stance. And that takes you back to the visible war, that disease in the body, the visible warfare around us, fighting our loved ones, throwing our hands up and saying it's not even worth it. Or just completely giving in to something that you know isn't beneficial for you. And that is the hardest part of a visible warfare, because it makes no sense a lot of times in our minds, and we just free flow with that negative vibe. But when we can wake up and realize there is an invisible warfare, it is called a spiritual warfare. It's almost like it's magic. We've gone through times in history back in the 1880s, where witches were being called witches or accused of being witches and slaughtered for no reason. You can go back 500 years before that and it was vampires, and you can go back before that and it was werewolves. There's always somebody, some entity, something that exists within society that creates discomfort. And that is the one thing that everybody that's comfortable in that toxic nature will attack. But it's funny, the one thing that's being attacked is the one thing that can set everyone free on a mental level. Because when you can unlock everything on a mental level and say, you know what, it doesn't matter if it's necessarily real or not real, I can understand how it's affecting me. Because you don't have to see something for it to affect you. That's just like when, let's say a hurricane blows in. And it hits the state next to you, but it doesn't hit your state. You will notice all of your resources starting to flow somewhere else to help people in a time of need. That is something that is indirectly affecting you that hasn't directly affected you. So if you can start making sense of the invisible warfare that comes with the visible warfare, you can start making sense of this 3D reality. And a lot of times you have to fight the invisible warfare that you don't even know what it takes. You don't know the armor necessary. You don't know the preparations. You don't even know what you're battling. But when you can prepare for this kind of war, then you're ready to open up to another realm of life, not just this tangible, I can touch it, I have to work for it, can I pay my bills, does everything matter, the stressors that come with the reality of being here. And that's the hardest part, because it's believing in the unbelievable, the impossible. But as I've heard it put several times, impossible directly states I am possible. And I am is the greater power that brings justice. So when you can begin to believe in I am, and I am what I am, whatever I'm going to be, but you're going to have to fight a battle to get to who you are. I know it's probably sounding, hopefully it's making sense to you, because it's really hard to put this into words. I have mulled this over in my head for 2 days, and I don't know if this will even get out. I've been making videos, and then it's like, nope, can't put that out. Make another video. Nope, can't put that out. But it's also, I have not been choosing to make this specific video, because even I am kind of lost for words of how to explain it, because it's like a doctor trying to use their terminology to tell a patient what they're sick from. And then the patient's like, a myocardial infarction, what the fuck's wrong with me? And they're like, oh, you had a heart attack. It's something that it's really hard to put into words. So like I said, I'm hoping that you're following me in this concept, or at least opens up the doors and the reality of bigger thinking, food for thought. Because even when I wrote my book, the no contact zone, there are situations in here that talk about the warfare that I'm talking about. And it is that battle between good and bad. But that battle doesn't necessarily exist anywhere outside of you. It all happens within you. You know, I was watching something the other day about having a spiritual awakening, but as you're having that spiritual awakening, the ego has to die, and the ego is fighting back like, fuck you, no, I've been driving this train for a long time. You need me. And spirit's going, no, you're not necessary anymore. And the more that there's this battle, that one that knows it doesn't need to be there, that's toxic, is going to keep fighting and fighting to maintain their position. And as you're going through this battle within yourself, it does get tumultuous. It gets really hard to start making sense of anything, but it's like one day, boom, that epiphany comes, and then you're like, it makes total sense. It's the oh moment. And then when you have the oh moment, you almost free yourself from shackles you never knew you were wearing, because in that invisible warfare, you are wearing invisible constraints, things that hold you back. Because your mind will tell your spirit that it's not necessary, but your spirit will convince your body that I am needed. It will show you. And the more medication you're on, the more addictions that you're battling, and the more bad relationships that you accept, and the jobs that serve no purpose, these are the direct result of allowing the visible warfare to confuse you that there's not an invisible warfare. But like I said, it's all going on within you. There's something in all of us that's been locked up tight. And it goes directly back to the beginning of what I said. How you have been programmed. And the people that were programming you were not programming you to necessarily hurt you. In their mind, they were protecting you. Based off society. Based off of, you know, electrical currents that you can shock yourself with. So they had to spank you because you were hard-headed. They couldn't stay on you 100% and make sure that you weren't going to harm yourself. So by trying to help you, they hindered your spirit. But the more that they hindered your spirit, by the time you were even old enough to make sense that you were alive, you had choices. You had been so traumatized that your spirit kind of went away, and your ego already stood up and said, here I am, world. I'm big. I'm bad. You ain't going to hurt me. And this is a subconscious way of living. We don't even know that we go into the world like assholes. We don't know that we approach the world in a sense that you've already hurt me. Not going to happen again. And a lot of people go around and willingly hurt people, not realizing they're hurting them, because In their mind, it didn't hurt. It was a lesson they had to learn. But it was a lesson in the tangible physical world, not a lesson in the spiritual aspect of life. So just as you've learned your 3D lessons, you have to start learning the in-between lessons to allow you access to the 5D realm of life, the spiritual plane. Because on the spiritual plane is where you start drawing that energy down to feed your soul. That allows you to not only realize there's an invisible war at hand, but what is required to fight it. That requires you dedicating certain aspects of your life to an exercise, multiple exercises. And the more that you strengthen that part of you, not to say that the old will completely die away, you can learn to quiet it until it's no longer needed. Because you still have to heal that side of you in order to say, okay, now I tuck you away, maybe for another lifetime, right? It lays dormant within you. It's no longer the provoker. It's no longer the antagonizer. It's no longer the one making you disbelieve things you should believe. Because every aspect of who we are is necessary to maintain what we are. So when you can get to the point of knowing there's things within you that just lie dormant, it's just like somebody that has, I think it's MSR. It's a disorder in the body, that simple things can now attack their bodies and make them so sick they could possibly pass away. It's there. Something triggered it to protect the body. And it's the same on a spiritual reality or a spiritual plane. There's more than one side to us, but we only believe what we can see. When you can begin to believe that there's that energy, that driving force that has a higher connection, something that can guide you, an internal GPS, when you can believe the unbelievable, you can start to achieve things you never even imagined. But first you have to accept there is an ancient tale that nobody has told in lifetimes. Why? Because werewolves, vampires, dragons, witches, there's always some factor, a fear factor, that starts to shut people down. They don't want anyone to know that they're special. They don't want anyone to know that they're healers. They don't want anyone to know that they can help. But I'll tell you, a lot of people are waking up knowing they're special, understanding the tales of antiquity. And a lot of us are here to start sharing the truth with you, to help you open your eyes, free your mind, and let your soul flow. Let your spirit grow, so you can start finding that life does not have to be something that bombards you with oppression, depression, stress, anger, strife, hate. There's actually great gifts that we have been given. The ability to breathe is one of them. The ability to create language and share emotions is another. We're very creative individuals. Let's not let the fear of what is creative that not everyone possesses silence us so much that we allow ourselves to die off, because the only thing we allow is that darkness to rule everything. Because like I said, it goes very easily right back to when the darkness is on the inside. And not saying you can't have a dark side, because light and dark are necessary. If you want polarity, an optimal functioning system, you have to allow yourself to understand we're all good and bad. We're all full of love and hate. We're all full of fear and hope. And it's okay to balance those things, because the more we can balance those things, we can let it flow freely. The more that we try to control that aspect to us, we're only blocking ourselves and creating something that is containing us and constraining us and not allowing us to shine like the diamonds that we are. So hopefully that makes some kind of sense. And I'm going to leave it at that. And hopefully you enjoyed the food for thought. I'm getting tongue-tied right now, so peace, love, and light. Bye-bye.